Welcome back, guys, to Work in Progress. This is the second episode, and today we're having a look at some bikes that I finished. So this is one of my short-term projects to get ready for Powerfest and Cycers 6, small 16-man tournament in December. I'm just improving, hopefully, my ravenwing and riptide list by adding more black knights. Can never have too many black knights, and by replacing my librarian with Tech Marine. So in the last work in progress, you saw this guy already assembled. So basically here he is again, ready for priming. And over the last few days, in the little time that I've had, I've just managed to complete 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more black knights. So remember, I got the replacement box from GW because I was missing one sprue. And so I managed to make 9 though, because this guy here was hacked onto a Dark Vengeance bike. You see he's slightly leaned over. That's because the Dark Vengeance bikes are modeled leaning and turning. You see he's turned his wheel a little bit. So it was a little bit tricky getting this guy's arms attached, given that the Black Knight sprue is not meant to be turning. These guys are all straight on. So it was a little bit tricky, but managed, and so here we are. The other thing I've decided to do is to try and fluff out my riptide wing a little bit. They're painted like ravenwing, but still, you know, it's riptide wing and ravenwing. So what my fluff is going to say is that they're being controlled. They're captured suits, and they're being controlled by the Mechanicus. And so I have a Tech Marine in my list, and I've got these 4 servitors that I've modeled just purely with their servo arms, and you know, this dude has got these cables that I'm gonna have sort of plugged into the legs of the riptide wing. So each riptide is gonna have one of these guys on the base attached somewhere to it, just temporarily, so I can always remove it. And then I've got a bunch of servo skulls from the Devastator sprues that I'm going to sort of have floating around, maybe 1 or 2 floating around the head of each riptide wing. So that I also need to get done by the next tournament. Hopefully that'll give me a little bit more on the fluff points. Maybe not, but anyway, it'll be a fun little experiment. I also need these servitors anyway for my Mastodon Wolfen army idea. And I have one other reason I need servitors, but I can't remember now. Oh yeah, if I ever need 10-point elite slots for Company of the Great Wolf for my Space Wolves list, servitors. So I needed these servitors anyway, so I picked them up, and I'll throw them in this batch. They're fine casts. They're a little bit of a pain in the ass to work with, but I think I've got them stuck together now, so it should be okay. So I'm ready to prime here. This little stick here is from an old baby gate that we don't use anymore, so I'm going to use it. So it's perfect for sticking models on, and I've got some double-sided tape on there, and I've got my bikes lined up, ready for priming. I thought it better to put them on like this, since that's more the surface area showing, instead of putting them like this. So we'll see how that goes. And then my second batch will be 2 more bikes I couldn't fit on there, and my servitors. So let's go get priming. For priming, actually, let me just show you. I'm going to use my Citadel Chaos Black priming spray. So back in the 90s, this didn't exist. You could get Chaos Black primer, but you had to paint it on. And it was really thick. And even if you painted it on carefully, especially with lead models and the crappy detail, like it would basically just end up a blob. It was really bad. But when I did my chaplain the last week, I sprayed it multiple times, and it didn't get rid of any of the details. Really quite impressive. Good spray and solid coverage, doesn't kill detail, and of course there's so much more detail in these models these days, so I do rate this spray quite nicely. So we'll go do that. And right, so priming is done for my 10 bikers and my 4 servitors, and actually I had this spare Dark Vengeance librarian lying around, so I did him anyway as my test model. So I'm going to be practicing techniques on him before I do it on my actual models. I could just use them in my army, but I have a lot of librarians, so I don't really need another one. So, as I said, the priming is really quite good on these guys. You know, a couple of passes with the Chaos Black, and you get quite good coverage. Get into focus here for you. Quite good coverage, even, and as you can see, you don't lose any details. So you can see the feathers there, all still very detailed. All the little pouches and markings, the little dots on the exhaust. You'd think those would easily get filled in by black spray paint, but they don't. You know, all the little ridges on the top of the plasma gun, the little dots on the back of the backpack, all the little symbols and everything, all still good. And it literally took 2 minutes, so it's just really way better than it used to be having to make your own Chaos Black brush-on primer. So similarly across the whole group here, really excellent priming. And servatives are ready to go as well. They were easy to prime. All right, here we go. So I'm a bit chicken. I haven't painted since the 90s. I have no idea how this paint reacts to brush and water. So what I've decided to do, I'm using this, as I mentioned, I'm using this extra librarian here as a guinea pig model. I'm going to just paint this part of the cloak here, some Xandri dust, okay, and just to get a feel of how the paint goes on and how much water to put on it and stuff. So you're about to witness hobby history. You're about to witness the first strokes of the brush since the early 90s. So, you know, I prepared so well for this, I haven't even opened the bottle yet. Here we go. Oh yeah. Alright, so according to Duncan, you're going to take a bit on your brush here, put it on the palette. Okay, good job. Take a little bit of water, thin it down. Alright, here we go. You ready to witness hobby history? There we go. Yeah, that's pretty good. Goes on smooth. Obviously, you know, this pale color doesn't cover this cloak in one go, so we'll have to go over it again, but I gotta say it's pretty good. It's way better than my grade 9 art class, that's for sure. Okay, well that's pretty good. I gotta say, that was way better than I expected, so that's promising. So I ended up getting, you know, that medium base brush. I got this big ass brush for dry brushing and washing, and I got this small layer brush. But then I figured I don't really have enough brushes to paint the really fine stuff, and there was a sale going on at Dessert. So I actually picked up 3 of these Winston & Newton Series 7, which are supposedly good. They were actually probably around the same price as the GW brushes after the sale. So I got a 1, a 0, and a 00. The 00 is pretty small, so that should be good enough for most detail. And then the 1 is pretty big. I could probably use that for basing. So anyway, I'll just use the GW brushes for now, and then until they get screwed, and then I'll. So I finished the first coat of the Xandri dust on this librarian's cape, and looks pretty good. Actually, the coverage has been pretty good. That's just one watered down coat, so that's pretty good. It definitely needs 2 coats, but actually I'm pretty impressed with the coverage, and it was easy to put on. Even with the base brush, you can get right up to the details without making any mistakes if you're careful. So yeah, I'm really quite happy with that. So what I'm going to do, instead of finishing this off, because this is just a test model, I'm going to actually start doing my bikers now. So what I'm going to do actually is base these guys in Abaddon Black, and then do all the other base colors. So there was a tip that I saw somewhere online that, so let's say you have a biker here. So what you should do first is fill in the less popular, the less widespread base colors. So do the white on the wings, do the metal, do any like pouches and things, like the silver of the engines, and then start to fill in the black afterwards, so that you save yourself a step of having to go back and recover black areas when you've painted the smaller base coat. So that sounds like a good idea. So I'll do that. So I'm going to work on these bikers, and we'll be back. Probably I'll come back again after I've managed to put on one layer of base coats on all of them. I started painting these silver bits on this bike here. So I painted that, you know, the exhaust pipes, the engine block. I put some silver on the Corvus hammer. Put some silver on the front of the plasma talons. And yeah, it took me a while. It took me like 15 minutes. And then I started thinking, well, all the parts around are going to have to be black. And that's fine if I have to paint silver over a different color. But since the primer is black anyway, it seems like I'm just duplicating effort. And why don't I just... And that will make putting black over 90% of the model extra difficult. And take more time. So actually what I should probably do is just Abaddon black the whole model. Just bloom, bloom, bloom. Like use big brush, Abaddon black the whole model, and then base coat all these smaller areas. Because I have to be careful of these areas anyway, and the model's black anyway, and I'm going to have to go over it again, so this seems inefficient. So what I'm going to do actually is start this one again. I'm just going to Abaddon black the whole thing. I'll avoid these areas if I can, but you know, and then see how that workflow goes. Alright, so I finished base coating black using Abaddon black. Finished base coating all these bikers and the Tech Marine. Basically, it didn't take too long, maybe about 5 minutes each bike. Just going over most areas of the bike with the Abaddon black. And it is a little bit more matte looking now than the primer. It's also, the black is a little bit more solid than the primer. And so it's looking pretty good. I did skim over areas that I know are going to be not black, so the sort of wings, I know they're going to be white, so I didn't bother doing that. You know, the feathers, I know they're going to be white, I didn't bother doing that. Most of the apothecary here, his armor is going to be white, so I didn't go over that again with black, because then it would just make it harder to paint white. You know, Corvus hammers, all the silver bits I didn't bother going over. And the Tech Marine is going to be sort of mechanicum red color, most of his armor, so I didn't go over any of that, or any of his harness or arms or anything, that they're all going to be silver or metallic. So, you know, I managed to make up some efficiencies there. And so that's looking really good. So next step will be to finish the base colors on these bikes. So I'm going to be doing all the silver bits, and I'll try and do all the white bits, and then I'll try and do all the markings and things like that. So this bit might take a little bit longer because it's a bit more detailed, but that black bit is finished now. Alright, so I finished the base coat of silver on all the bikes. I used lead belcher, and it took me a little bit longer than I wanted. There's a lot of little silver bits all over the place, and I planned it that I'm going to touch up the black at the end anyway. So got it there on the pipes, and I had to do 2 coats to get a good covering. So it took a little while to do these 9 guys. And the Tech Marine particularly took long because he is covered in silver with all his arms and everything. So, but alright, so making progress here. After the silver, my second color was to do the red. So the most time was spent on this Tech Marine because he's got the most red. So he's got bolters, and then all this, his armor is basically all red. And what I'm doing is I use the left shoulder as the Mechanicum shoulder, and the right one, since that's the one that came on the bike, will be his Dark Angels. Normally it's reversed according to the box art, but you know. Anyway, took me ages. I paint one wire, I'm going to paint another wire yellow, to sort of go in between all the teeth there, and then you know, the plasma cutter, all the wires on the axe took a while, And the backpack kind of took a while, but anyway, it's looking pretty good. And I had to do 2 coats and everything. The corn red, just not good coverage over the black. I need to do 2 coats on everything. So picked out a little bit more silver on his head here. Just the cables and wires and stuff. So yeah, not able to get down into the chest area to do a lot of detail work. So I just painted it silver. I actually put together my other Tech Marine over here. That's going to be Iron Hands. And so he's going to be just a normal Tech Marine standing up. So I'm going to be able to do all the usual detail on him. So I got him over there and his backpack's over there. Yet to be primed, but another project yet to go with those servitors. So on the other guys, really the reds was mostly just the casings for the plasma talons. So you can see here all the plasma talons are red, a few little red details. And then of course the eyes, I managed to get a nice tip and get some red in the eyes there. I'm pretty happy with that without needing any touch-up. So that's pretty good. I guess my surgical loops come in handy for that. So that's my work in progress so far. I'm going to just paint the red on the shoulders. Like with this guy here, he needs red on the shoulders underneath the ravenwing symbol. The ravenwing symbol can go on top of that. So I think I'm going to paint the red and then use the white on top. And then I'm on to the next color, which is probably going to be the white. Some further progress here on my bikes. I'll show you the Tech Marine, I guess. So just touched up a few silver bits in and around him there. So just going from GW source material, you know, all that stuff should be silver, so touch that stuff up. Tonight, particularly, I've been working on the Xandri dust bits, so the robes, and the Screamer Pink in the inside robes. I really like Screamer Pink, it's a great color. So got all the guys with robes done. Here's another dude with robes, white on the outside, pink on the inside, so that's going to look pretty nice. And then this guy took me a while. This sort of, he's not really kitted as a champion, but he's going to be, he's set up like a champion. He's got the robes, he's got the fancy helmet, and he's got this ridiculously detailed angels holding up this golden ring. And it took a while to paint these robes on these angel dudes, but that's looking pretty good. Also just painted this stripe on the right side as yellow on all my bikers. So in standard bikers, the right shoulder is going to be a yellow stripe, whereas the right shoulder is a red stripe. That's what it is on the box. It's not what it is on my other ravenwing models, but it'll set these guys apart as the guys I painted, I guess. And way over the lines on lots of bits, well, so I got to go over black again in a lot of places on every model. So not too worried about going over the lines. And then painting these purity seals. These freaking things are everywhere. I think I got them all now. But yeah, so just been doing all that tonight in the middle of the US election. So it's been keeping me entertained. All right, so I finished today the blue base coat, which was mostly, show you here, on the headlights. And also the plasma talons, and those are going to be glowing. And that was basically the blue. There were little spots of blue on the apothecary, like blue fluid, but then the rest of the day I literally spent doing white. So the white is everywhere. There's white on the raven wing, like wings. There's white on their chests, all their shoulders. I had to pick out all this shoulder detail in white. So I have to pick that out painstakingly. The backpacks have little ravens on it. The bikes have all sorts of different scrolls and raven signs on it that are quite difficult to paint. Of course, all the fins. And then finally, the most amount of white I spent on this guy, the apothecary. his, not only does he have all the white that everyone else has, but his armor is completely white for the most part. So, and I had to triple coat that because of course I base painted in black. Primed in black, so that was a little bit painstaking. I think actually his shoulder ended up looking the best. That took a while to pick that out nicely. His backpack took a while to do with all the weird angles. Some of the detail that I put on him before I'll have to go over again because it was just too much of a pain to paint white around it, but I managed to maintain the red and yellow fluid detail at the back of the apothecary, so that was pretty cool. I painted a screen onto his auspex there. They all got screens now anyway on the front. Some bits of white got in different places, I'll have to touch that up, but the apothecary is looking quite good. So that was today's work, was all the white, and I'm going to finish off these bikers base coats now with some gold details, and then it will be all base coating done. Some touch-ups and then done, and that will be on to shading and highlighting.